Welcome, my lifers, to a habit video. I love habits and routines, and you may too. It seems to be kind of a hot topic out there in social media, if you're out there in social media very much. And I think it's because we know how much habits and routines can help us, and how much when we fall out of them, we feel a little bit lost. I've hesitated a bit with making a video like this because I have been always driven by rules and checklists and to-do lists and things. And sometimes the best thing that you can do is get away from that mentality so that you can really get the depth of what life is about and what God has for you. I think that sometimes we can get so busy with checking things off of lists that we don't even realize we're not really doing what God called us to do. We may be getting a lot done, we may be very productive, but we're not actually progressing in the way that is perhaps best for God's kingdom. And yet, God did make us to live in discipline and habits and routine. So I don't think that one side or the other is the best. I think that I love ebb and flow. I love the words because I think they describe very well the necessity of things that come in and go out. I do think, though, that habits and routines can really be a good foundation for all of the things that God does have planned for us. And yet, we do need to always invite Him in. We need to take the time to evaluate, is this actually serving the purpose of helping me in God's kingdom to further what He has for us, for other people, serving people? Or is it just a way for me to feel good about myself? And so, again, I've hesitated with making a video like this primarily because I don't want it to come off like, here's the rules to follow and then everything will be good. Here's the things that you must check off every day, otherwise you failed. I don't necessarily think that the things that I'm going to be doing for the month are things that you need to be doing for your month. I do think that these kinds of videos, when I've seen them on other people's pages and things, are very inspiring. They oftentimes open me up to the possibilities of what we can do with our time. So let it serve as an inspiration more than a list of things that you need to do. And above all, that we have the forgiveness and grace with ourselves if we can't meet those. I think that one of my favorite people to follow on social media does make a kind of a goals list at the beginning of the month, and then she evaluates at the end of the month, and then she makes adjustments. And I think that's one of the best ways to approach this, because if you find that you're really struggling with certain things that you set out to do, maybe this is your ebb and flow moment of stepping back and looking deeper into why it is a struggle. Maybe this is not the season to try to check off things. Maybe it's not even the season for that particular goal. And maybe it is. Maybe there's some other resistance going on. And I think it's a beautiful opportunity to invite God in, praise God for the resistance, for this moment of tension, because it's going to teach me something deeper about Him and about my relationship with Him. So I think that all of these things can be opportunities versus a set of rules that you either live by or fail. Now, for me, a lot of the things that I have implemented routine wise over the last year or so are things that I'm going to continue doing, but they became a routine or a habit because I had a very specific focus and a way to analyze whether I was doing it and to remember. Even remembering to do some of these things strangely can slide away from you, even though it feels important to you. And that's just because we are in a busy world, right? There are so many things that can distract us. If you are constantly having to remember all the things that you wanted to do, prioritize, your mind is always active trying to remember all the things. If you don't have it written down, if you don't have it as a reminder on your phone, if you don't have a specific plan, a lot of these things slide away. Also, if the goal is way too big, it can slide away. And what I have noticed for myself is when I really want a habit to stick, I do have to make it small and tangible and repeatable every day. You're going to hear about that in books like Atomic Habits. There's another book, Tiny Habits, but you will not be able to keep a habit going if it is something very difficult for you to do on a daily basis. I've used this example before, but I have a friend who works from home and has a lot of meetings during the day. After each Zoom or whatever the platform is, Teams meeting, will do 25 push-ups and tries to hit 100 push-ups a day. The reason that works is because it's very set in focus. It's a very tangible thing to do. I don't know how many minutes it takes to do 25 push-ups, but didn't have to get dressed, go to the gym, take a shower, the whole thing that can sometimes cause people to not make physical progress with their health. A very small, tangible goal, 25 push-ups after I hit end on my meeting. Things like that are easy to repeat day after day. Now, for you, it may not be that, but for me, it's something like my physical therapy exercises. And I'm going to be showing some of this stuff to you in paper and writing because I like that visual. It's very important to me for something to be visual. It's why I'm more of a pencil to paper type of a person. You may be really good with apps and things like that. Whatever works for you. But as long as you have a visual trigger and it's something broken down into a small enough thing that you can maybe later expand upon. And for me, what it does is it builds this momentum. And then before you know it, you're even doing more than you set out to do. And that doesn't necessarily mean you're more productive in things physical that are happening, but it could be mental, it could be spiritual. I'll share one of the goals that I have been working on this last month that I'm going to be carrying into next month. And again, this is very much of a hesitation of mine to even share because I feel like people compare and then that becomes a trap. Please try not to think of this as a comparison, but more so just what I am using as a tool to expand into my day. So I noticed that my prayer time is very disjointed. I will be praying and then all of a sudden I think of something and I need to go do that. And then I'm over here, I'm over there, and I might be, saying little prayers, but a lot of times I'll even forget during the day to talk to God about this because I'm so caught up in getting things done or my work or taking care of things with the family. And it's like I need to hone in on my spiritual weapon of prayer. And some of that requires discipline. And it's not a checklist. It's not something that I feel like, okay, now I feel good about myself, but I already know the power and impact of prayer. And I know that I want to prioritize it. And so I need something tangible that will get my mind to click in and do it. So, what I started to do was just say, I am setting my timer on my phone for 1 hour, whether I'm walking, whether I am getting ready and doing my makeup and taking a shower, whatever it is, during that hour, I am just going to talk to God. Now, there have been times a phone call came through, my husband was calling me or the kids or something. I stopped my timer. It's not it's not like rigid and now I have to start all over. It's not that. But what it does for me is it alleviates all of this pressure. It doesn't matter if another thought comes in, let it go back out. I'm in prayer right now, and this is more important, and I'll remember later. And if I don't, I guess it wasn't that important. But what I noticed that it started to do was it triggered my mind throughout the day to stop and pray about something or to hear God very clearly in a moment when I normally would get caught in my little thought spiral. So what the discipline has started to do for me is bring my mind back into the understanding of my connection and relationship with God. Because I know that that tool is something that requires discipline and focus and time, I have to make it a priority. When I read in the Bible that Jesus got up before dark and went away as a habit to pray to his Father, I'm like, why do we feel like we don't need that? Or we don't really have to prioritize that. If he did, I need to. And I know that for me, it is just going to enhance my relationship with God. So to me, that is like my number one priority. Now, some people will be like, well, that's being legalistic. You don't need to have a timer and set a time. The problem is that when God puts something on your heart personally, I'm not saying this is what everybody in the church needs to do or everybody out there that's a Christian. I'm not saying that. If God puts something on your heart, this is a time for you to grow your spiritual weapon of prayer. Okay, God, I do want to do that. I want that. I want that connection with you. And this is one of the ways that I am going to be able to do that in a way that feels tangible. So it's not legalistic. If I don't do that exactly a day, I don't feel bad about it, but it gives me something that I can focus on. And our brains need that because otherwise it's very easy to think, I'll just get to that later. I'll do that later. And then something always comes up that interferes with it. And then before you know it, all this time goes by and you're like, why am I not doing XYZ? Why can't I get it together? You didn't give yourself something specific for your brain to latch onto. So I do this with different things. My physical therapy used to be very, the exercises that my physical therapist gave me used to be something just up in my head. I never really knew if I was done or not. They gave me a bunch of exercises, so many that it was not really possible to get through them all each day. So what I ended up doing is breaking them down into small and tangible and visual so that I could, okay, these are the things that I want to do. And guess what? I do them virtually every day unless we are completely gone, like flying somewhere all day and I don't even have access to the floor and the wall and the other things that I use to do my PT. But the reason that it became a habit was because I made it very specific, tangible, visual, and something that I could actually do on repeat every day. I also sit in front of my red light every day. But it used to be, oh, I should do that. Well, how long should I do that? 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 5 minutes? And I thought, you know what? Something is better than nothing. So 5 minutes, I can do 5 minutes. And I usually stretch. Sometimes I'm reading. But it was very specific. My brain says, I have 5 minutes right now. I can do that. And it's been so much better for building the habit than when it was just kind of loose and not specific up in my head. And these various things that I'm going to be talking about are things that I do plan on doing each day. However, at the end of the month, if I need to make adjustments because this was unrealistic, no problem. That is the point of the beginning and the ending. And then going through the motions and seeing, does this actually work? And if it doesn't work, where is the friction? Where is the sticking? And let me see if I can unstick that. Maybe I need to make it less time. Maybe I need to have things set up more clearly and appropriately, like have it visual in my room so that I don't forget my checklist, my equipment, whatever. So for you, if you're going to do anything goal oriented, I recommend that you also write them down like I'm going to and revisit them each day. It needs to be something you can check off. It needs to be something that you can see, because otherwise you're going to start scrolling. You're going to forget, or you're going to think, I'll just do it tomorrow. So let's look at what I've got. I'm going to flip the camera to my desk and I'll just show you, again, not anything you have to do, but this is what my plan is for this next month. Okay, I think I've given you enough of an intro. So today I started jotting down some of the things that are going to be my priority for the month, and I would encourage you to do the same. I'm going to kind of show you the overall and then how I am going about keeping a visual reminder. You may not be so much of a checklist kind of a person, but I do think it's a great thing to track what you're doing, because that reminder is something that I think will make a difference in your progress and whether or not you decide to continue with that goal for the following month. So for me, you may not be able to read this because it's in pencil, but I'll kind of talk through it. Spiritual, I already discussed a little bit. 1 hour of prayer, and I'm using my timer on my phone for 1 hour. And like I said, if somebody calls or there's something urgent, then I just pause it and then I restart it later. 1 chapter of the Bible. I do listen to my Bible app every day when I'm getting ready in the morning, and that has been tremendous. I noticed that I was getting away from reading the actual Bible and I was reading a lot of devotions. I am involved in, different Bible studies and different group devotionals. And I was reading a lot of things that other people write, which is not bad. And I think it's very useful. But my number one priority is go straight to the source. So for me, just read a chapter of my Bible every day. Today, I think I read Joshua 9, and the takeaway from that was Joshua and the Israelites had just overcome all the odds with taking over this one city that God called them to do. all the odds were against them. The forces were way too big, but God completely delivered that city to the Israelites and Joshua. Very soon after that, they were facing some other enemies, and they just decided that they were going to kind of do what they did before. And the thing that I underlined was they didn't consult God. And guess what? They failed. So just because you have a plan, just because the plan worked before, does not necessarily mean that you should just keep doing that same plan. Consult the Lord. Find His peace and direction in that path. And we can't neglect that and just do everything out of human reasoning, because God wants to be a part of everything. Meditate on a mind verse. So for me, I will use this theme in so many of my videos, but our thoughts drive everything. And I want to have God's word built into my head to train my thoughts, because without that, we are led by our heart, which the Bible says is deceitful among all things, right? Above all things. So I will be memorizing and meditating on the verse about taking all your thoughts captive to Christ. And to me, that reminder throughout the day, where my thoughts need to be, is how I feel God is leading me to train my mind. I have a journal book that gives prompts for just various things to journal about within the Bible. So I have been working through that journal book for the last month, but I want to carry that on so that I do a little bit each day. Sometimes I do it in the morning, sometimes I do it before bed, but I do like to keep that as a priority because it kind of helps me process through what I have been reading. Physically, I'm going to keep doing my physical therapy exercises, and this is my main way of tracking that, my habit tracker. And I just print this off online. It's a free download tracker that I'll see if I can put it in the comments under, or not comments, but in the information box. But in any case, it gives me, I just kind of jot out the ones that they asked me to do. And each of these might take 30 seconds to a minute. So it's not a lot of time. I check it off if I do it. That helps me remember. Sometimes I break it up during the day. I don't have it all done at the same time. Down here is where I'm tracking sitting in front of my red light. So I call it God time and red light time because I'm usually praying, stretching, and sitting in front of my red light. Lifting is also on my goal sheet here. But I have been doing that. So my lifting, I tell myself a minimum of 10 minutes a day. Normally it's about an hour, but there are days that it's a very long day. I can't get to the gym. I can't even do the gym in the garage, but I can do 10 minutes. So I at least make a goal of 10 minutes for lifting. Reading, and I put that under mental. So I'll come back to that reading, but under physical, I'm going to continue with PT, my red light, lifting. Prayer walk is something that I have been doing. I usually give myself like a minimum 15 minutes. So I try to get out in the neighborhood and nature and walk for 15 minutes without, any podcasts and things like that. Sometimes it's an hour walk, and then my prayer hour fits into this prayer walk, and they go together. Some days it doesn't work, but I do at least try to get outside in the early morning Not only is that good for setting your circadian rhythm because of the sunlight in the morning, but it also gives me time in nature, time to pray, kind of a great start to your day. Eating unprocessed. So my weakness is probably tortilla chips, which is, not the end of the world, but I tend to get like canker sores in my mouth if I eat them. I think it's just better for me if I try to avoid stuff that triggers other issues. Also, for physical, I'm putting environment, and I am going to make a goal of purging 100 things throughout the month total. So I'll just hold a box full of any items that I decide to get rid of, and that will start to get rid of clutter physically in my environment. Mentally, I have been doing this, but I will continue to do this, is reading a minimum of 5 pages a day, and then reading one devotion a day. And those two, I usually do kind of like at the same time, one after the other. The way that I track my reading, and this again, I've probably is way more than most people would even care to do, but this is what helps my brain to get excited about doing things, is I will put the book that I'm reading and the pages, how many pages I'm planning on reading of that book. And I put that on at the beginning of each week. I kind of divvy it up over the course of the week. And then before I know it, I'm done with another book. And I'm not trying to just plow through books because I want to actually retain the information. But I notice that I will not even pick up the book sometimes. And I'm like, I just need to at least get started and get some of the knowledge out of this book. And if I don't have like a tangible goal for it, then I oftentimes just don't even open it in the first place. So I will just write down the pages. I also do some educational stuff. So I gave myself this last month the goal of 10 minutes in that educational material. I'm done with that now, so I don't have to keep doing that. But in any case, the goals that I make in my planner just give me something, okay, this is what I'm trying to do today. And I notice when I don't do that, I'm very likely to float. I kind of don't do the things that I know actually make me feel good, help change the way that I'm thinking, help build up my spiritual muscle. So even though these are not rules that anybody has to follow, they do work for me in a way of helping me to build up mainly my relationship with God, but also discipline in certain areas that I feel make a difference in my life. And I notice that it will kind of infiltrate all different aspects of my day and my life, my peace, how I interact with other people. I was going to say too, it's very interesting. So sometimes when you have a lot of goals or a lot of things you feel like you have to get done, I don't know about you, but for me, if something gets in the way of that, I can get very anxious because I'm like, oh, shoot, I should be doing blah, 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 right? Today, I was talking to somebody. It started to take way longer than I had expected. And I'm like, ooh, I have kind of a lot of things on my mind that I need to get done. They don't have to get done today, but I had planned for that. And obviously, I've written things out for this week. And all the while that I'm talking, every once in a while, I would feel and hear, this is exactly where you are supposed to be. And I noticed that that would happen with my kids quite often when I was trying to be present with them. And I think that that's the beauty of having the ebb and flow understanding, is that When you get into a deeper relationship with God where you're actually prioritizing Him and how He leads you, then if it doesn't go the way that you had planned, you still have peace in it. You still know that this is where I'm supposed to be. And I get to surrender my goal, plan, or thoughts to what He has in mind. Now, for you, you may not have any of this stuff. Maybe your goal is to volunteer at a shelter or the church or something like that. I already do some of that, but let's just say that's a goal for you. If you're not doing it yet, and there's some reason that you haven't started with that, then what could you do to face that resistance? Is it a time issue? Are you fearful? Is there some aspect of it? So, what I usually say is, what one small step could you do today that would move you closer to that? So, you may just do a Google search on what opportunities there are. And then maybe tomorrow you call one of those places and find out what's required in order to be involved in that. And then maybe the next day you actually go there and you look and see, does this seem to fit with? So rather than just having it be loose and not tangible in your brain, if you have a specific thing that you can break it down into a step by step, that can make a huge difference in actually starting to do it. Physical activity and eating healthy is one of the areas that people come to me for advice a lot. And I think that it makes sense because it's an area of resistance for many people. I think usually it's because we have information overload and we don't have enough time or focus. If you choose, yes, there's a lot of information. There's a lot of different ways to eat. There's a lot of different ways to exercise. If you choose one thing that you can do on repeat and see how you feel at the end of the month, even if it takes 10 minutes a day, if you actually have an hour a day, great. Pick one healthy meal to try for the week. Whatever it is, if you can make it something that would be tangible and doable, it will move you one step closer to next month's goal. And I really believe that God works with us in the entirety of who we are, not just on a spiritual level, not just on a physical level, not just on an emotional level, all of it. So we get this opportunity to come as a package, surrender it to God, say, I want to live the most on fire best life that I can because I want to help other people. I want to be effective. I want to have the right mindset. I don't want to get stuck. I don't want to be just stagnant. I don't want to just be going through the motions. Can you show me what I need to do on a daily basis? One small thing. And I do think that will make a big difference for you. So I hope that you will consider this. I am also going to try to put in this video my little silly habit track, not even a tracker, builder, this little Finch app that you may think I am 5 years old, the fact that I use this thing. But there's something about it that brings me joy. And in the book, Tiny Habits, I can't think of the author's name. He's a PhD in behavioral science and stuff. He talks about how one of the main ways to make habits stick is to have joy related to it. People don't stick to things that make them feel bad. They stick to things that make them feel good. And so in this little silly very juvenile habit tracker, this little cute Finch. You get to get furniture for its little room, and you get to get like clothing items, and each little habit that you do each day, and you enter those in. They give you some presets that you may not, feel are appropriate for you. Um, but you can, change them whenever you want and put them in there on a repeat. Most of mine are just set for repeat every day. And as you accomplish those things, it will allow your little Finch to go on an adventure. And then she comes back at the end of your adventure, or he, and tells you what he or she discovered on the adventure. And so you're basically like racking up points to send this little thing on an adventure and then to buy things for it and everything. But my point being, whatever works for you. It brings me joy. It's silly. It makes me feel like a little girl, but it helps me to stay focused. And so one of the things that I do in the morning, I have on this little Finch app, no phone in the morning is one of my goals. So before I even go on my Finch app, I make sure I spend time with God and I do all this stuff. And that is one of the things that I see every day when I finally get onto my Finch app and I look at the things that I'm going to do to try to get her on her adventure. And I already know before I even open my phone in the morning, no phone in the morning. And so all these little things just subtly kind of retrain your thinking. And I love that because I think that God made us to have fun with these kind of things and to help one another and also do it as a community. So I hope that you will, kind of come back and let me know what you've done or what goals you've decided upon and how they're working for you. I'm going to do my best to try to film some of the things that I'm doing throughout the month so that you can kind of see it in action. But I'm so glad you were with me today, and I hope that this helps you in some small way, and I will see you in the next one. Live on fire.